What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the special 1 p.m. Eastern edition on Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday. I don't even know what date it is anymore, but special Tuesday edition of the NHL Stokastic Strategy Show, sponsored by BetMGM. We're at 1 o'clock because I'm an idiot and don't know when my flights are. So if we had it at the regular time, I would have missed the show and didn't want to leave Cliffy hanging while I was flying back east. So here we are at 1 p.m. Anyway, here's Cliffy. How you doing today, Cliffy?
Not too bad, man. Not too bad. I think I got an easier day ahead than you do with all the travel coming back out east. But yeah, just a real nice 9-game slate we have up ahead of us here tonight. Hopefully we can put last night in the rearview mirror. I didn't do so well. I did all right with my Buffalo stack. I went to double center with Thompson and Cousins, added Jeff Skinner. They were they were just fine, but obviously Tampa went nuclear. Austin Matthews had the combo meal last night, both the shot and the block bonus on DraftKings. I definitely did not see that coming. So it was a rough night for me, but right back at it here today. How'd you do last night?
Yeah, I used Ville Husso, so I checked out early. But, I still managed to get to because I'm on the West Coast, I was up at 9:30, which is midnight on the East, and I was checking my lineups. I still managed to make 100 points because I had McNuggets and Anton Lundell late, and I didn't sniff the cash, but between Husso, Shea Theodore, and Ryan Graves was negative there, so I was behind the 8-ball early. So the good news is we get to do it again all tonight. Some from the comfort of their home, some on cheap Wi-Fi at 30,000 feet. But regardless, we'll all do this together. And fun 9-gamer tonight. It actually is a really nice slate. I do really like it. But before we get into that, make sure to give us a like and subscribe to keep up with all of our shows, DFS offers, giveaways, and much more. Once you subscribe, hit that notification button to get alerts when our shows go live. Don't forget, almost all our content is available in podcast form on the platform of your choice, except for the Live Before Locks. Obviously, they don't have shelf life. Help us out by leaving a 5-star review. Once again, I'll know it's you if you comment about the size of my head. So let's get into this slate. First game of the night, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning with a 2.9 total heading into Boston. The Bruins have a 3.5 total. Moose went last night, so it's probably going to be Andrei Vasilevsky in net for Tampa Bay. No goalie confirmed yet for Boston. I think Omar is hurt, so it's probably going to be Swayman. Tampa 1 looked good last night, and Hagel did move back to the top power play unit, replacing Killorn, so they're fully correlated. Boston's still running Marchand, Bergeron, DeBrusque, second line of Zacha, Krejci, Pasternak. Not much ownership here. Both top lines coming in 5-6%. Boston has a big total. It is Vasilevsky in net, but they still, the Lightning still struggle on the power play here. David Pasternak shooting the lights out still over 9,000. I like the Boston side here. I don't mind getting to Tampa Bay. They are back-to-back on the road on a 9-gamer. I try to avoid those scenarios, but I think, push comes to shove, this is a Boston slate for me. Or game, not slate, sorry.
Yeah, I agree. Tampa 1 certainly did the thing last night. Steven Stamkos, 2 goals, 2 assists last night. Didn't see him in a lot of lineups, though. It seems like people just full stack Tampa 1. But regardless, good game from him. But yeah, this is not going into Buffalo. This is going into Boston. Probably the worst matchup a team can ask for. Since Brad Marchand got back for the Bruins, that top line, 1.8 expected goals against per 60 minutes. They're just as good defensively as they've ever been. 0.7 actual goals. The teams just are not scoring on them at all. That's the matchup that Tampa 1's running into here tonight. So I am not going to be playing the Lightning here in this game. It's if it was a shorter slate, if you're looking at 4 or 5 games or something like that, maybe it's a consideration. But with 9 games, such a bad matchup. I'm out on Tampa Bay. I wrote a Boston one for the picks article over at Stokastic.com. Free to read for anybody to go check out. Just head on over to the NHL section. I did write up the Boston top line as one of the stacks to use today. The reason for that is special teams mostly. These are two teams that both take and draw a lot of penalties. Tampa Bay is at about 3.7 times shorthanded per game, which is well above the league average. I think the league average is at about 3.4 right now. And Boston draws the most power plays in the league per game at 3.9, actually tied with this Tampa team. So I think you could see a lot of Boston power plays in this game. And yesterday's show, we talked about how mediocre that Tampa Bay penalty killing really has been. Now, not so bad of late, but still, outside the top 10 for shots against. The goals against is still not very good, as, both Vasilevsky and Brian Elliott have struggled at times this year. I think it's a pretty good spot for this Boston power play, which is why I have Bergeron, DeBrusk, and Marchand as one of the top stacks in that article. The top power plays looked really good since Charlie McAvoy came back, scoring 15 goals per 60 minutes. Now, they're not generating a ton of shots, but I don't think this is a power play that also has to generate a ton of shots. You just have to watch them. They are wizards with the puck. They know where every teammate is on the ice when they have the power play. So I really do like the Boston top line here, the Boston power play. The problem is what do you do about David Pastrnak, right? He's on the second line, but he clearly is one of the big engines of this offense. He has 3 games this year on DraftKings with below 10 points. 3, that's it. Every other game has been 10 plus. I was looking at his recent game log, 19 and a half, almost 16, 19, 30 and a half. A couple games before that, 22. A couple games before that, almost 30. Even with Marchand back in the lineup and Pastrnak down on the second line, he's still one of the most productive players in the league. So then it's what do you do with your stack? Do you take out DeBrusk and put in Pastrnak? Well, then that gets real expensive. Do you take off Marchand and put in Pastrnak? Well, then you're breaking up the top line. So I think DFS players have some decisions to make about how they're going to stack Boston here tonight. I will probably be trying to look for some combinations that I can use where I can still fit in a decent secondary stack even while using Pastrnak. So it is tough, but I think it's just a really good matchup for that Boston power play. So I do like the Boston top line here in this game. You can stack the second line. I don't think that's the direction I would go in this one. That Nick Paul line has actually been pretty good defensively this year. 2.2 expected goals against per 60 minutes. That Boston second line hasn't really been that great at 5-on-5. A lot of Pasternak's values come with the power play. So I think it's about Boston top line / David Pastrnak in this one. And it's just about figuring out what kind of line combinations you want to use.
Yeah. I haven't messed with making lineups yet, but I don't even know if it's possible to full power play stack the Bruins. And if it is, you're using min price guys with them. So yeah, that's definitely a question. Maybe you can fit in Pasta over DeBrusk, but it might be hard to fit a secondary stack in there. So if you're using Boston, mess around with that, see what happens. Let's move to the blue line. Honestly, I think, just Charlie McAvoy is fine. If you want to fit him in, that'll take you on a nice, unique path. It's kind of like using Makar with Colorado 1. It's just super expensive and hard to do. But I think, it gets you pretty unique. So McAvoy is fine. Other than that, maybe, Carlo, but nothing really sticking out for me on the Tampa side.
Yeah, there really isn't much that I really genuinely like on the Tampa side. Hedman and Sergachev are eating up all the minutes. They're playing 24, 25 a game and everybody else is under 20. So you're not getting many minutes, even if you are playing somebody like Chernak or Eric Cole or something. So, without the minutes. And then, we talked on yesterday's show about how Hedman's been really, really reliant on power play production for his points over the last few years. He's not on the top power play. His price went up from 5,400 yesterday on DraftKings to 6,300 today going into Boston. Not sure what's going on there, but Yeah, he's out. And then, Boston's penalty kill is just excellent. So I don't want to use Sergachev at his inflated price either. So I think, Chernak's fine. He's only $3K on DraftKings. He's pretty cheap on FanDuel as well. So, either side, if you need a cheap defenseman, he's fine, but he's not a target of mine. On the Bruins side, like Hampus Lindholm is still putting up decent peripherals and ice time numbers, even with Charlie McAvoy back. So I don't think I would, run out to play him at 5,400, but I don't think he's as bad as a play that it might look like on first glance, even though he's not in the top power play unit. But if I'm playing any defenseman, it's probably Charlie McAvoy in a power play stack. But this isn't really a game where I'm loving any of the blue liners, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree for sure. So let's move on to the next one. San Jose Sharks with a 3.2 total. Heading into Montreal, the Canadiens also have a 3.2 total. Capo Kakinen, Jake Allen confirmed. I like stuff from both sides here. It's just this game just feels like it's going to be so ugly. Like it could be one of those ugly games. And like if you fade it, you're screwed. If you play it, you could be screwed. Like I just don't have a great feeling about this game. I want to use stuff on both sides here. I like the power play matchup for the Sharks. I like, even I kind of like some of the depth for Montreal going into the absolute crap depth of the Sharks. So like this is a game that feels kind of important on the slate.
Yeah, it really does. And you're seeing the 6.5 total in this game. So obviously they're expecting some goals here. The Montreal depth is kind of where I was drawn initially. Now, I wrote up the Dadonov, Dvorak, Gallagher line in that Power Plays article. The reason for that being they're going to see a fair bit of Nieto, Couture, and Barabanov, the second line from San Jose. And that second line from San Jose, they've been all right, but they're really trading chances back and forth. 2.8 expected goals for per 60 minutes, 2.7 against, allowing 3.6 goals against per 60 minutes. Like they're allowing a lot defensively. And I think Dadonov, Dvorak, and Gallagher can kind of take advantage of that. Like at the very least, they do play to a slow pace, but at the very least, they are controlling the play by expected goal share. So, a two-man of Dvorak and Gallagher or Dvorak and Dadonov or something like that, I think is perfectly fine to use. But we were also I just dropped the stats in the Discord. That third line for Montreal, Sean Monahan and Josh Anderson have played pretty well together in a small sample. I would say they played high-paced hockey in a small sample, let's say. So they're generating a lot offensively, and they're also allowing quite a bit defensively. So they are trading chances back and forth. But Sean Monahan is on the top power play unit. He's only 3,800, which I think is pretty reasonable for that. Josh Anderson's 3K. Now, I think his contract's turning out to not be very good, but he's still a player that has the physical gifts to go out and create a goal by himself, which is something that's nice to have in a player that's $3,000. And, the San Jose depth, not awful, but not great. Like it's not something to be feared or anything like that. So I actually don't mind the Montreal depth in this game. So if you want to do a two-man of like Dvorak and Gallagher, I think that's fine. Or a two-man of Monahan and Armia or Monahan and Anderson or something like that, I think that's fine as well. That's kind of where I'm focusing on the Montreal side. For the San Jose side, I agree with you. It's a good spot for the top power play. So, Meyer, their top line, Meyer, Hurdle, LeBanc, you get Meyer and Hurdle on the top power play unit. They just don't draw a lot of power plays, which is kind of a problem. Only 2.5 power plays per game so far this season. I think that's last in the NHL or close to last with Columbus. So, do they get enough opportunities to really capitalize on Montreal here? I think that's the issue. But yeah, the Montreal penalty kill just hasn't been all that strong of late. Third most shots against on the PK in the month of November, worse than like Philadelphia and Columbus and Nashville. So, yeah, it is a good power play matchup. I just worry about how many power plays they actually get. But that top line of Meyer, Hurdle, and LeBanc has been really, really good since they put them together. 3.2 expected goals for, 4.7 actual goals for. It seems like Meyer's putting up a shot bonus, almost every time he hits the ice. So, yeah, I do like San Jose's top line here, even, going into that Montreal top line. their defensive numbers have been sliding a little bit. The offensive numbers are still good for Montreal's top line, but I think as expected, like Caulfield and Suzuki, not great defensively. So, Kirby Dach will help, but he won't completely, turn that line around. So I do like, of the top lines, I like San Jose one more here, but I don't mind the Montreal depth for a cheap 2-man stack either.
Yep, I agree there. Let's move to the blue line. Erik Karlsson, circus price on DraftKings of $8,700. That's very, very expensive.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to get there with like a, Yossi on the slate. But like if you are doing a San Jose power play stack, he's usually involved in the goals here. I mean, it is very expensive. So like I'm not going out of my way to fit him in. But like if I make a lineup and I'm in that range, I'll put him in. I mean, especially if I have Sharks. Like, I don't know if I'd one off Karlsson. Like, I think Karlsson for me would be in Sharks lineups only and, go from there. On the Montreal side, probably going to be Mike Matheson for me. Probably about it.
Yeah, Matheson projecting real well for us, whether on DraftKings or FanDuel. I think he's one of the top point per dollar defensemen that we have on this slate. So, he is on the top power play unit. San Jose's only given up 6 power play goals against this season in 24 games, which is just absolutely bonkers. But he does get that power play time. He is going to play 22, 23 minutes, something like that. So I do like Matheson here. The one name I'll mention is Jacob Magna on the San Jose side because Mario Ferraro's injured and he was getting the second most minutes after Erik Karlsson. Magna was up to, I think, about 22 minutes in their last game. I don't know if I'd run out to play him, but he's on the top pair, probably going to play a lot of minutes alongside Karlsson. He's one of those cheapish guys that I don't mind here tonight, but he's not, the top of my list.
Yeah, I agree there. Carolina Hurricanes with a 3.0 total heading into Pittsburgh. The Penguins have a 3 total as well. Pyotr Kochetkov is probable for the Hurricanes. Tristan Jarry confirmed for the Penguins. Looks like status quo for the Penguins lines. Jarvis, Aho, Netchis, Svechnikov, Kotkaniemi, Nason. We'll see. The Hurricanes lines always seem like they're changing. Like, this is a tough special teams matchup for the Penguins here. Not the best 5-on-5 matchup either, but like I don't have much faith in the Hurricanes side here, and I'm kind of talking myself into Penguins here. What are you doing?
Yeah, I honestly don't mind Pittsburgh here tonight. One of the reasons is, like the Carolina penalty kill isn't allowing a ton of goals, but they're not as good as they were last year. Like last year, they were like nearly an historic penalty kill. This year has not been anywhere near the same boat. In fact, I was looking at their penalty kill numbers just for this month. 13 games, they're allowing more shots per minute than Arizona, Edmonton, or Anaheim. It's just, they're getting 900 goaltending on the penalty kill, which is, saving them. I think there's something to be said. Like Carolina's pretty well known for, forcing tougher shots and maybe not getting the cleanest looks that teams want. So maybe there's something to that, but they are giving up quite a few shots against on the penalty kill. So I think Pittsburgh power play at least has an opportunity here to score. If this was, this time last year, I would have said there's no way they're scoring on the Carolina penalty kill. Now I think it's a little bit more of an open question. They've gone back to their normal lines. They've had them for a couple games now. The top line has been really, really good this year for Pittsburgh. 3.7 goals, 4 per 60 minutes, 4.8 actual goals. They've been very good. Aho and Jarvis have been pretty good in their sample going back to last year. But Jarvis hasn't had a very good season so far this year. He's struggled a little bit, particularly creating offensively. So I think Pittsburgh's top line probably gets the advantage in this matchup. But, our projections have that top line and Carolina top line basically neck and neck for points. So I think, either side of that matchup is fine. I would, when they're close like that, especially ownership wise, I just lean to the home team. So I would go Pittsburgh one there. On the second line, Brian Rust is down to $5,000. on DraftKings. I wrote him up for the power play article as well. For the reasons that I mentioned, the Carolina penalty kill is still good, but not super elite. And he was moved back to the top power play unit where Jeff Petrie had been playing the last couple of games. So Rust is back on the top power play. So you get Zucker, Malkin, and Rust on the second line, Rust and Malkin on the second power play unit. The way Pittsburgh runs their lines, like their top six will just take opposing top six. And that second line for Carolina, like Svechnikov and Kotkaniemi don't have really good numbers this year without Martin Necas as the winger on the other side. Putting in player X, anybody but Necas, 1.7 expected goals for, 2.3 against. So they're well below 50% in the expected goal share battle without Necas on that line. 3.3 actual goals against. Now, the reason for that is Kotkaniemi's not having a very good year. In fact, we talked about that over the weekend, and like not long after we talked about it, I think he assisted on a Carolina goal, but he's having a pretty bad year, particularly offensively, and it's allowing other teams to just, turn the puck around in the defensive zone and get going back offensively. And with Necas on the top line, with Stefan Noesen on that second line, I think that's a matchup that Zucker, Malkin, and Rusk can take advantage of, and they've been good this year as well. 3.8 expected goals for per 60 minutes. Now, the problem is they don't play a ton. Like, Jake Gensel and Crosby are probably going to play like 19, 20 minutes. Malkin and Rust are closer to like that 16, 17 range. But I think it's a fine 5-on-5 matchup for them. So honestly, if everything in this game is probably the Penguins' second line that I like the best, and we're not showing a ton of ownership on them here. About 3.5% over on DraftKings per our top stacks tool. Just looking over on FanDuel, they're coming in at 3.7%. So without much ownership here, it's still a 3 total. I know old Coochie's in, and that might scare some people away, but I don't mind the matchup for the Pittsburgh second line going up a fair bit against that Kotkaniemi line. So that's probably where I would look in this game.
Yeah, I think they're kind of a nice little sneaky spot here tonight. Let's move to the blue line. You want to use the power play quarterbacks, Burns, Letang, I guess that's fine. I wouldn't one-off Letang. I would maybe consider one-offing Burns just because, the Pittsburgh penalty kill, not the best, but I think my favorite defender out of this game is Brett Pesce.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Pesce because I was just looking at the seasons for him and Slavin. It was like, it feels like, I was just thinking to myself, it feels like they're always good value, but they don't do a ton. And I was actually looking at some games. Slavin's only had one double-digit game in the last month. And he only has one game this season with over 14 DK points. On the flip side, Pesce's kind of in the same boat. He's put up a couple decent games lately, but no game this season with more than 16 DK points. So, like, they've had good games. They just haven't had great games. And I'm wondering, if there's not something that's changed with the Carolina tactics. Obviously, I don't track their games every single day, so I would know as some other Carolina fans, but I just wonder how involved they actually are in the offense. But the prices are fine. I agree with you. I'd probably go Pesce over Slavin, but I think, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. On the Penguin side, like Letang's, his shot rate has come up, but he's still not shooting a lot. He's like 1, 2, 3 shots per game or something like that over his last half dozen games. He's just not looked like the defenseman he was a year ago. He's kind of looking Drew Doughty-ish, if I know, if I can go so far. So I don't know if I would go with Letang here. Like, I think he's fine to use, but he's definitely not a guy that I'm running out to play. I think the guy that I kind of like in this game the most is Pesce.
Yeah, not running out to roster D-men from this game, really. Excuse me. As we mentioned off the top, we are sponsored by BetMGM, and we have a no-brainer offer for you. You can bet $10 and win $200 if any team scores a goal during the World Cup. It has happened. 0-0 ties also count. Click the link in the description to sign up. The bet must be on a pregame money line. This runs through December 4th. It is available in all states except New York, Pennsylvania, Mississippi, and Ontario. You get paid out in free bets. It's first-time depositors only. So, if you don't have a BetMGM account, you can sign up, bet $10, win $200 in free bets. It is literally that simple. There are no strings attached. Get 20x your deposit in free bets and start building your account from there. Let's move on to the next one. New York Islanders with a 3.1 total heading into Philadelphia. The Flyers have a 2.4 total. Ilya Sorokin, Carter Hart, both confirmed here. I just don't think I'm getting to any of the Flyers here tonight. 2.4 total at home, 9-game slate going into Sorokin. It's just like checking all the boxes for me to fade. If you want to, one off like a Kiefer Bellows because he's min price on the top power play, have at it, Hoss. But I don't think I'm going to go out of my way. I'm probably just full fading the Flyers here tonight. Islanders are a bit different here. I just, Bailey moving back up with Barzal and Wahlstrom. I like Barzal. I like Brock Nelson. I just don't know if I'm full stacking anything again. Maybe I'll do something with the power play. But what are you seeing in this game?
Yeah, just want to mention a couple injury notes on the Flyers side. Scott Laughton looks like he's going to be back tonight. They had Lucas Sedlak practicing on the top line with Kevin Hayes and Joel Farabee. I'm going to assume that Laughton just steps into that role with Hayes and Farabee. I guess we'll find out at warmups. And the other one is Tony DeAngelo. He was just announced out. They said he got hurt blocking a shot in their last game. So Tony DeAngelo is going to be out tonight, and I know he's not good defensively, but I think that's a pretty big loss for the Flyers power play specifically. He's a really, really good power play defenseman. We've seen that with some of these games, particularly a little bit earlier in the season. So, where you are facing Sorokin, the Islanders typically do have a good penalty kill. They don't take a ton of penalties either. I don't think there's a lot of reason why I'd be super excited about rostering the Flyers here tonight. If anything, I would probably drop down to that Tippett, Frost, Bellows line. Now, Tippett and Morgan Frost haven't been that good together, but the Islanders' second line on the other side do give up a lot of chances. So, I think there are some opportunities here for Frost or Tippett to maybe get some decent chances at 5-on-5. But there's nobody that I'm full stacking. I'm not full stacking Scott Laughton and Hayes and Farabee or anything like that. If anything from the Flyers, it'd be like a one-off Tippett, one-off Frost, something like that. That's about where I am on the Flyers side. On the Islanders side, we're just going to run into the same problem that we did in the last game, which is going to be a lot of ownership. And they have players across three lines that can score. I mean, a lot of people probably rostered Matt Barzal in the last game or just full stack the Islanders second line and then Zach Parise goes out, scores 2 goals, right? So that's kind of the issue with the Islanders is that they do have three lines that can score, particularly because JG Pajot is on the third line, but the top power play unit. He's the guy I wrote about in the Power Plays article up at Stokastic.com as one of the cheap centers that is usable here tonight. What I wrote is the Islanders power play has been sneaky good this year. 45 minutes together, the core four of Anders Lee, Brock Nelson, Matthew Barzal, Noah Dobson, 135 shot attempts and 11 goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-4. Those are really, really good power play numbers. I'm not saying that, they're not Islanders adjusted good. It's just good, period. The power play has been really good for the Islanders, and the Flyers penalty kill, it's just been in a steady decline pretty much the entire season. They're giving up the fourth most shots against in the month of November. They're sandwiched between Columbus and Montreal. They're giving up, I believe, the 8th most goals against per 60 minutes. So they don't take a ton of penalties. The Islanders don't draw a lot of penalties. They're both a little bit below average in that regard, but I think this is a really, really good matchup for the Islanders power play. So I think this is another case where you can do a double center stack, like we talked about on Saturday when these two teams faced off. You can do Nelson, Pajot and Dobson, or Barzal, Pajot and Dobson, or Barzal, Nelson, something like that. It's the centers that are getting the ice time. Nelson's not shooting as much as he was early in the season, but he's still shooting a fair bit. Those guys get the ice time. You bring along one of the wingers if you want, bring along a Wallstrom or bring along a Anders Lee or what have you. But I think it's the centers plus Dobson that I would focus on here, trying to take advantage of what's a fairly weak Flyers penalty kill.
Yes, and let's talk about that blue line. Noah Dobson, 6,600 on DraftKings on the blue line here. I think, excuse me, if you're doing anything with the Islanders power play, I think, obviously he's the guy. Ryan Pulock still under 4K. If you want to chase those points, I think under 4K is fine to chase with him. On the Flyer side, without Tony DeAngelo, I would imagine Rasmus Ristolainen and Travis Sanheim. See a minutes bump there. They're both 3K. I think they're both fine. You want to use Provorov for that power play time. I don't think this is the best power play matchup. He's obviously not as good as Tony DeAngelo on the power play. You can go to him at 5K. I think the price is all right, but I think I prefer the other two guys.
Yeah, Provorov was projecting well for his price even before DeAngelo was announced out, so I imagine that'll only get better. I actually don't mind Provorov at 5K over on DraftKings here tonight. I think that's perfectly fine for what we can expect from him. I don't know if I would get up to 6,400 on FanDuel for him. I think that's a bit too much. But yeah, Sanheim was probably the guy that I was going to look to. I think he's a little bit more reliable for production. But yeah, Sanheim and Ristolainen, they're both fine. They should see a minutes bump as well. On the Islander side, man, I was looking over their last 6 games. They have 5 defensemen all skating within a minute of each other in total ice time. It's kind of like pick your poison. Obviously, Noah Dobson tops the list because of the power play and because he does put up more peripherals than most. But if you're not playing Noah Dobson and you're not going min price Sebastian Aho, then just pick one of the defensemen between them because they're all pretty much about the same. I would lean to somebody like Ryan Pulock, who does have offensive upside, whereas I think guys like, I think Romanov is just a shot blocker, and I don't think he gets enough opportunities in this game. So I would lean to somebody like Pulock more than the others.
I concur there. Let's move on to the next one, which is going to draw some attention, I think. The Anaheim Ducks with a 2.6 total heading into Nashville. The Predators have a 3.8 total. Ducks don't confirm goalies. Could be Anthony Stolarz here. UC Saros confirmed. This Predators total is I get it. Ducks are a mess defensively. They're not very good on the penalty kill. I just don't like these lines. Just flat out. And they're getting a ton of ownership here. I think if you're going to do anything on the Nashville side, it's some sort of power play stack. You want to, Forsberg, Granlund, Yossi, Forsberg, Duchesne, Yossi, something like that. I just don't know if I'm full stacking any of these lines at this ownership. Now, the Ducks side, the Ducks top line is arguably overpriced here, but they've been rolling along here, and this is another good power play spot here. I kind of like the Ducks lines here, or the Ducks top line. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think it's important to really consider the Anaheim top line here because Nashville's they're playing at home today. They had 2 games canceled because over the weekend because their arena flooded. So they haven't played in a week. And I know COVID's kind of screwed everything up over the last few years, but the NHL used to have this thing called bye weeks. Maybe they still do. I haven't checked the schedule. But anyways, what they found is that teams coming out of bye weeks typically didn't do very well. They typically got outplayed, certainly got outscored, lost more games than they should have. Basically, anytime a team gets more than 5 days of rest, it seems like it kind of turns into rust rather than just rest. So I wonder if Nashville maybe comes out a bit flat here. These guys haven't played a game since before Thanksgiving. That's a long time off, 25% of the way through the NHL season. And it's not as if the Anaheim top line is a slouch or anything like that. 2.9 expected goals for per 60 minutes so far this season, 3.7 actual goals for. They're all playing over 19 minutes. They're all in the same power play unit. And as you mentioned, the Nashville penalty kill hasn't really been that great. Seventh most shots against per 60 minutes in the month of November, more than, like Buffalo and Arizona. UC Saros has been pretty good in net for them. So, he's definitely been a difference maker on the penalty kill for them, but it's the penalty kill itself, not super strong. They're also probably going to use the Granlund line in a shutdown role. And, we don't have a huge sample with Parsonen on that top line, but in the sample that they do have, 3.2 expected goals against per 60 minutes. That's not very good defensively. So I'm kind of with you here. Like, I'm not going to begrudge anybody for playing Nashville here, because Anaheim is, if not the worst defensive team in the league at all strengths, then like bottom three. So, in a nutshell, it is a really good matchup, but we have double-digit ownership on their top two lines. The third line for Nashville is coming in at 3% ownership. There is going to be a lot of ownership on the Nashville side. And I do wonder if they're not just a little bit rusty after having a week off, and that Anaheim top line has been really good, coming in with no ownership, about 2% over on DK, about 4% over on FanDuel. I think this is one of those leveraged lines that is perfectly fine to use here, especially where the Nashville penalty kill I don't think is very good. And they're taking 3.6 penalties per game, 3.6 times shorthanded. So well above average in time shorthanded per game. So I think this is a good spot for the Anaheim top line. I agree with you. If I do anything with Nashville, it'd be some sort of power play stack. Get the focus of that offense in your lineup. So guys like Duchesne, guys like Forsberg, guys like Yossi, that's definitely where I would go. I don't mind full stacking the top line because they are cheap and you can get a decent secondary stack in there with them. But I think it's the power play guys that would be the focus for me on the Nashville side.
Yeah, I agree there. And it's just a question of, ownership and your tolerance to that. Let's move to the blue line. It's going to be Cam Fowler, going to be Roman Yossi for me. Other than that, there are some guys like Ryan McDonough, 3,400 is okay. Matthias Ekholm, 3K is okay. Dmitry Kulikov is a bit expensive on DraftKings, 4,100. So it's probably just going to be the power play guys for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I will mention Alexander Carrier. He's been playing like 19, 20 minutes of late for Nashville. 3.8 total at home, really cheap, playing 19, 20 minutes. I don't mind that. If you need like a near min price, near min price defenseman here on DK tonight.
Yes. And I agree there. We have a lineup generator, and it's the perfect tool for building winning lineups for any DFS content. Our cutting-edge algorithms analyze player data and trends to help you make the best choices for your lineup. With easy-to-use interface, you have your lineups built in seconds. No more hours spent researching players, although you still can research. You don't want to just blindly click in lineups. Get an edge on your opponents by using lineup generators, powerful contest simulations. Save your time and energy. So I use it a bunch especially for Showdown, NFL Showdown. We have it for NFL. We have it for NBA right now. You have the ability to choose between balanced builds, highly projected builds, or contrarian ones. You can save or discard your lineups, I think up to 20, I believe. You get player exposures once you've created your lineups. And you also have the ability to stack an NFL contest, which is nice. You can, run back, you can stack one or two guys, and you can have the option to run it back with a player from the other team. It is a nice tool. In general, chalkier lineups are more likely to cash in a contest, but going too heavy on the favorites can leave you with a lowly finish if they all underperform. On the other hand, contrarian lineups may not always be in the money, but if they hit, you can be looking at a big payday. If you sign up with any of our memberships, any of our DFS packages on Stokastic.com, you get the lineup generator. Right now, it's just NFL and NBA, but I heard rumor on the street, a little birdie in the sky told me that it is coming for NHL, so stay tuned for that. Colorado Avalanche, 3.1 total, heading into Winnipeg. The Jets have a 2.8 total, probably going to be Georgiev, probably going to be Hellebuck. It appears Evan Rodriguez, I believe, went on IR, so he's still out. So that second line is still going to be Cogliano, Comfort, and Logan O'Connor. It appears Alex Galchenyuk is going to come into the lineup for the Colorado here. 3.1 total on the road is pretty large considering their depth is not great here. So it's if they're going to score, it's where it's coming from. Don't have the flow chart with me here out in California, but Morgan Barron slides into the line with Kyle Connor and Pierre-Luc Dubois, Cole Perfidi, Mark Scheifele, Blake Wheeler still together. Colorado won, matchup proof here. I like them. They are wildly expensive as always. I think there is some stuff to like on the Winnipeg side, though.
Yeah, there is. One thing I guess we'll get to the goalies here in a second, but one thing I did mention in that Power Plays article that I wrote at Stokastic.com, speaking to the Colorado side, is that Winnipeg really doesn't take a lot of penalties. 2.7 times shorthanded per game this season, and the penalty kill itself has been pretty good. So they don't take a lot of penalties, and they have a very good penalty kill. And the reason that's a problem for Colorado is without that depth scoring this year that they're missing, Nichushkin and Landeskog and now Rodriguez on the IR, that's effectively their entire second line. Without that depth scoring, they've been really reliant on power play goals for production this year. Colorado has scored 23 goals on the power play so far this season, only 68 goals total, which means over a third of their goals have come with the man advantage. And that's more than teams like Tampa Bay and Boston and even Edmonton. Like we talk about how Edmonton is really power play reliant. Colorado's been more so than them. So this is a very power play reliant team going into a matchup where they may not get a lot of power plays. And if they do, it's a pretty good penalty kill to begin with. So that's what kind of worries me with Colorado here tonight is, like obviously if they put up 5 on Hellebuck or whatever, then that top line is probably going to go absolutely bananas. But I don't think it's a very good power play spot for them. So I think this is a place where I could probably just set Colorado aside. Like I'm not going to say don't use them. They're coming in with pretty huge leverage as we have them as a 30, believe it or not, a 33% top 2 stack here on this slate, right at the top, giving them the best leverage on this slate for all the line combinations. But I think it's a really bad matchup for the power play. You're going to have like one-off Nathan McKinnon's a lot all over the place just because of how much he's shooting the puck. That was something that was talked about in our Discord today. He's averaging a DK shot bonus per game, I think Mr. Goodman said. So, I just don't think it's a very good power play spot for Colorado, and they've been heavily reliant on that. And, their offensive numbers at 5-on-5 haven't been that great. 2.8 expected goals for in their last 100 minutes together, 2.4 actual goals for. That's not very good. Winnipeg's probably a little bit better than I think we gave them credit for at the start of the season. They've been playing well. So I'm going to be out on Colorado here. I just think in a better power play matchup on the road, like if they were in Nashville as opposed to in Winnipeg, I would probably be playing Colorado 1. But going into Winnipeg against that penalty kill against such a disciplined team, which is weird to say because usually Winnipeg's one of the most undisciplined teams in the league. I think I'm out on Colorado. On the Winnipeg side, Scheifele skating with Perfidi is kind of interesting because if you listen to maybe some Jets fans who actually follow on social media, but if you listen to some of the smarter Winnipeg fans, they think Perfidi's doing really well offensively. It's just, Pierre-Luc Dubois is kind of limited a little bit offensively, and Blake Wheeler, he is what he is at this point of the season. That's who he had been playing with most of the season. So they think that you might see more upside from him now that he's with Scheifele. Now, obviously, Blake Wheeler's still on the other side, but at the very least, 2 of those 3 guys, both on the top power play together, Scheifele and Wheeler on the top power play unit. The Colorado penalty kill, not great, but the goaltending has been. That's kind of the problem here. So, if anything, I would probably just full stack Winnipeg 1. Like, I think you're fine to include Perfidi in that stack. I do think like there is a little bit of scoring chance data that shows like he's been fine. They are fairly cheap, 13,500 on DK, so you can still fit in like a pretty good primary stack after that. We know how much Scheifele and company play with the empty net? Should they be in that chance at the end of the game? I just think Colorado's really starting to run out of steam here, having to play their top guys 23, 24, 25 minutes a night. Their defensemen 27, 28 minutes a night, game after game as they wait to get healthy. So I don't mind the Winnipeg top line here tonight, especially where they're probably going to be used against that depth from Colorado. And if they see a fair bit of that new hook Galchenyuk line, I think they're going to be able to carry the play. So I do like Winnipeg 1 in this matchup.
Yep, I agree. Let's move to the blue line. I think, you want to use the power play guys, Cale Makar, Josh Morrissey. That's fine. Like, I'm not prioritizing them. Outside of that, like, I just don't think there is a defenseman in this game that I really like. Maybe Sam Girard, maybe Brendan Dillon, maybe Dylan DeMello, but like I don't think I'm prioritizing anyone from this game on the blue line.
Yeah, like there's nobody that I'm like I would say, definitely one of my favorite plays today or anything like that. Like I think Neil Pionk's a little bit too expensive. I think Morrissey, Morrissey's on a little bit of a heater, so he's fine to play. Like I think, Nate Schmidt's fine to play. Brendan Dillon is the guy I always go back to because he typically gets decent minutes and he can sometimes get you that block bonus on DraftKings. But other than Dillon, that's probably about it.
Yep. Let's move on to the next one. Florida Panthers 2.9 total heading into Calgary. The Flames have a 3.5 total. Florida played last night with Spencer Knight, so it's going to be Sergei Bobrovsky against Daniel Vladar. Huberdeau back up to the top line. So Huberdeau, Lindholm, Toffoli, Dubé, Kadri, Mangiapane. Third line now is Ruzicka, Backlund, Coleman. Excuse me. I still kind of like that Lundell, Reinhart, Verhaeghe line. I do like the Flames top line. I just don't know if I'm going to get to the Panthers, back-to-back on the road. It is, not Markstrom, who's had a terrible season so far. So I think, there is some merits going there. But I think I don't mind going to the Flames top line here. They're cheap. The problem is they're getting some ownership.
Yeah, they're getting some ownership because they are so cheap. But I still think they're fine to play. I can't believe Jonathan Huberdeau was all the way down to 4,300. Like that feels kind of crazy to me. Like this Calgary top line was broken up earlier in the season, but it's not as if they were playing terribly. When they were skating together, 2.8 expected goals for, 2.1 expected goals against. Really not that bad. The problem is they were only shooting 2.2%. You're going to look bad on the ice whenever you're shooting 2.2%. That's just kind of the way it goes. But I think this is a decent matchup for them here tonight against the Florida Panthers. Like that line is probably going to be used in a sheltered role. Like I think you're going to see the Backlund line used against the top six. I think you're going to see the Kadri line used against the top six. I think you're going to see Lindholm and company get some softer matchups. And, with Barkov out, Florida depth is fine, but it's certainly not great. I think I'm with you on Florida 1, or on Calgary 1, sorry. Perfectly correlated. They are cheap. They're just really waiting for some shooting percentage regression to bring them back around. Like our DK projections have them at over 33 points, which is more than Pittsburgh 1, which is more than Carolina 1. Which is more than Montreal 1, which is more than Tampa Bay 1. Like, this line is projecting very well for us. The ownership's not extreme, coming in at about 9%. I think that's fine for a 9-game slate for a team that's at home with a 3.5 total. One thing I think you can do if you are worried about a little bit of ownership is just kind of make it a power play stack. Like I think take out Lindholm and put in Kadri, take out Toffoli, put in Kadri, something like that. I would leave Huberdeau in there because he's the playmaker and he's cheap. But Florida's taking 3.9 penalties per game, 3.9 times shorthanded per game. Now, they're also drawing a lot of power plays, but the Calgary penalty kill has been great. With Sergei Bobrovsky expected to start tonight, not Spencer Knight, I think that's a pretty big downgrade in net for Florida. So I do favor the Calgary side here. Huberdeau, Lindholm, Toffoli. Do like that matchup against the depth from the Panthers. And I think they can do a little bit of damage on the power play. On the Florida side, I honestly don't mind going right back to that top line. Benner and Kachuk have been playing very, very well together this year. Cousins, he played 13, 14 minutes last night. That's fine. It's 3,500. Calgary does take a fair bit of penalties. So I think, the Florida top line is definitely in play for me here tonight. But of all the lines, I think it's Calgary one that I like the best.
Yeah, I agree. And I kind of feel like they're going to come in a little bit more owned than that, but we'll see throughout the day here. Let's move to the blue line. For some reason, Michael Stone is the Flames' most expensive defender on DraftKings, which makes no sense. Rasmus Anderson, 4,700 for the power play, I think is fine. Noah Hannafin, 4,800 for the peripherals is fine. Like, Mackenzie Weegar is cheaper than Christopher Tanev, and I don't know, 3,500 Weegar. I'll take some stabs on the Panthers side. Ekblad's up to 6,500. Montour over 7,000. I don't know if I'd one off anybody on the Florida side.
Yeah, I'll just bring up my article, free to read over at Stokastic.com again. I wrote up Noah Hannafin. Among all defensemen priced $5,000 or less on DraftKings, our projections have Noah Hannafin at the top and into double digits. One reason is because he does put up peripherals related to those peripherals. Florida is a very high-paced team, second highest pace in the month of November in the league behind only Ottawa. So I think Hannafin has a chance to rack up a lot of peripherals. I think Aaron Ekblad is still fine because he's a guy that will rack up peripherals in a high-paced matchup as well. Mackenzie Weegar is tempting with that price drop. I think he's fine at 3,500, but honestly, I think I like Hannafin the best in this game.
I concur. Don't forget to click the link in the description below and sign up for BetMGM. Deposit $10, win $200. It's that simple, and it really is that simple. Let's get to the last two games of the night. Washington Capitals with a 3.1 total heading into Vancouver. The Canucks have 3.3 total. Darcy Kemper, Spencer Martin probable. Once again, don't know what to do with the Capitals. Probably be some sort of power play stack here. The Canucks defensively have actually gotten a little bit better here. Kuzmenko's back on power play 1, replacing Brock Besser. So I think that brings the Pettersson-Kuzmenko line into play. I think the top line of Horvat Miller is also in play. What do you see?
Yeah, it is Kuzmenko and Pettersson that I like here. I wrote up Elias Pettersson in that Power Plays article. He's had a big shot increase this year. That was kind of the problem with him in fantasy and years gone by, was that he wasn't a big shooter, 2.3, 2.4 per game. He's up to 3.3 per game this season, which is a big change for him. Him and Kuzmenko, even, Ilya Mikheyev wasn't at morning skate today. That's something we're going to have to watch out for. Even without Mikheyev there, they still had a really good start to the season. They're going to face off a lot against that Milano-Kuznetsov second line. Milano and Kuznetsov, 55 minutes together, 3.4 expected goals against, 3.3 actual goals against. I don't think that's very surprising, but it is a very good 5-on-5 matchup for Pettersson and Kuzmenko. I prefer Mikheyev be there than Jack Studnicka, but we're going to have to see how that works out. But yeah, Pettersson, Kuzmenko, I think is at the top of my list, at least over on DraftKings. FanDuel, Pettersson's really expensive, so I think there's a case for the top line instead. But at least on DK, it's Pettersson and Kuzmenko against a Washington PK that's been a lot better lately. But the Vancouver penalty kill really turned around after the first couple weeks of the season. So I like Vancouver too. On the Washington side, not a lot that I like. If anything, I would probably just go to the top line. Strome and Ovechkin are both on the power play together. Connor Sheary has helped out that line. The Vancouver penalty kill has been a lot better than they were in the first couple of weeks of the season as well. I think if anything on the Washington side, I'd be just picking one-offs. Ovechkin's always a one-off you can use. I think TJ Oshie, again, makes it a decent one-off. I think even Evgeny Kuznetsov, he's been shooting quite a bit on the power play of late. I think he's fine as a one-off as well. But it's one-offs for me from Washington, Vancouver too on the other side.
Let's move to the blue line. I think Carlson is also fine in the one-off category at 7,200 here. Quinn Hughes, if you want to power play, add in some power play stuff for the Canucks. Other than that, Ferravari, 2,600, I think is fine if you want some shot blocks. That's really about it. I wish Ethan Bear was a bit cheaper. 4,100 on DraftKings seems a bit too expensive.
Yeah, the one guy I'll mention is Kyle Burrows. Other than Hughes, every other defenseman for Vancouver is playing like 18, 19 minutes. Burrows is a guy that can put up a shot block bonus on DraftKings in 18 minutes of ice time. So I don't mind him as a sub 3K defenseman.
I like that call there. Let's get to the last game of the night here. Seattle Kraken with a 3.1 total. Heading into Los Angeles, the Kings have a 3.3. I think, we'll have to wait and see if Velarde's back in the lineup. They might be skating soon.
They had an optional.
What was that? They had optional? Yeah. So we'll wait and see there. I don't, again, if I'm going to go to a Seattle line, it's going to be McCann, Beniers, Eberle. We're just really cheap. You get a couple guys on the power play. They've been playing well. You want to go to, Yanni Gourde line. I think that's fine. You want to go, I honestly, it's always which Seattle line do I use? Because I think they're all kind of playable. But for me, it's going to be that second line, McCann, Beniers, Eberle. On the Kings side, if Seattle had semi-decent goaltending, I would kind of not really like the Kings tonight. But the Seattle goaltending has just been awful. So I think both of the top 6 lines are in play. What are you seeing?
Yeah, it's the Beniers line on the Seattle side that I was leaning towards because I think they do see a fair bit of the Los Angeles top line in this game. And with Kevin Fiala there, their defensive numbers have just not been good. 3.4 expected goals against per 60, 3.7 actual goals against. It's just bad defensive numbers. I think Beniers, McCann, and Eberle can definitely take advantage of that. 2.6 expected goals for together this year, scoring a lot since they've been put together. Eberle's individual shot rate has been climbing a little bit. So it's the Beniers, Eberle, McCann line that I like best. I don't think you have to full stack them either. I think Eberle makes a perfectly fine one-off. I think Jared McCann makes a perfectly fine one-off. I think you can do that if you don't want to full stack them. On the Kings side, it'd probably be Los Angeles too. If there's a weak spot in the Seattle team amongst their skaters, it's that the penalty kill hasn't been that great. And that Los Angeles second power play unit with all the second line Los Angeles guys on it has been a lot better with Arthur Kaliev. So, if you want to take off an expensive Trevor Moore and put on Kaliev instead and go like Arvidsson, Deneau, Kaliev, I think that's just fine. That's where I am tonight. Eberle line on the Seattle side and the Deneau line on the Los Angeles side.
Yep. On the blue lines, I think I like Vinny Dunn. He just plays tons of minutes. His price hasn't really gone anywhere. He's on the top power play. Kings penalty kill, not great. Carson Soucy, 2,700, I think is fine. On the Kings side, not too much there that I'm liking. Maybe Dursey at 5,100, but that's really about it.
Yeah, not a whole lot for me in this game. I'll say I think Adam Larsson's fine at 4K. Plays a lot of minutes, can easily get that block bonus. Just needs an assist or something for a pretty good fantasy night. So I don't mind Adam Larsson.
I don't mind that call there. Coming up after us, we have the NBA Deeper Dive at 5 p.m. with Josh and Adam, not me, Josh Engelman. And after that, NBA Live before lock at 6 p.m. with Greg and Eric. Who are you liking in net tonight?
Connor Hellebuck was the guy that I wrote up in the Power Plays article, specifically because I don't think Colorado gets a lot of power plays, and he could have a good night for cheap here tonight. But it's more on DK. FanDuel, I think he's too expensive. Don't mind Tristan Jarry either. Whoever starts for Calgary, if it's Vladar, I'm fine with him. In net against a high-paced Florida team. I'll mention UC Saros over on FanDuel. I think he's got a pretty good price for anybody playing on FanDuel.
Yeah, on DraftKings, I'll add in Ilya Sorokin. And I don't mind taking a stab on Vasilevsky at 7,100. I think that's just too cheap for him. Who's the old hat trick pick for you there, Cliffy?
I'm gonna go a little bit unexpected here, but I'm gonna say Nasty Nazem Kadri from Calgary.
think I'm going to the defenseman. Going Roman Yossi.
Okay. Oh, here we go. Yeah, if he gets a hat trick tonight, I'll definitely be logging out early. I can tell you that much.
Yeah. I'll be on a plane. I'll just start weeping probably, but it's fine. I like to mix it up. Yeah, I'll quit whining. So for Cliffy, I am your host, Josh Harris. I should be back in New Jersey tomorrow for my show at my desk where I can actually sit and not like contort my body to make my back feel good. So good luck, everybody, tonight. I'm probably going to have some Wi-Fi on the flight, so I'll see you in Discord or Twitter. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good luck, everyone.